Hey there, everybody. It's Sam with Studio 23 here on our lovely quarantine. Hopefully, everyone's being safe and staying sane. I've been asked to do an artist studio demo here. I don't really do a whole lot of art at my studio. It's pretty small, but what I have been doing to keep busy is leather work. So I was kind of thinking about what I want to do with you guys, and I'm going to make some sunglass holders sleeve thing. And a lot of times I go on Pinterest to find some inspiration, and I saw a pattern I liked, and so I made it on paper. Anybody can do this. Here it is. It's going to be folded like this, and we are going to sew along this side. So, have my leather. I got this from my local craft store. A lot of times they sell these in kind of scrap bulk variety packs. So if you're wondering where can I get some leather locally, that's what I do. You don't really need a whole lot of tools to get started doing leather working. Of course, you can kind of go way crazy and have a lot of stuff and spend a ton of money. But right now I'm still just kind of learning about it, so I haven't really spent a crazy amount of money. I think all my tools together is probably like $50. So I think that's pretty reasonable and anyone can do that. So to begin, you want to take your pattern and your leather. You can see this one here is kind of fuzzy on this side, kind of like that. And this is the smooth side. I picked this piece because I thought maybe the fuzzy side would maybe protect sunglasses or glasses. It's really soft leather. It's not like a really thick, stiff leather. You can use that. Like, I have some of that over here. You can see in this one here, it's a lot coarser on the backside and really not flexible. This one you would have to like soak in hot water to be able to shape it properly. If you're kind of wondering some of the other things I built in my tiny little home studio, I've been kind of making wallets too. Those take a little bit too long for a live demo, but here's one. This one's pretty cool. Little double pocket guy there. But we're gonna make some sunglasses. So I need to transfer this to this. And I've discovered that just like a basic pen works pretty nice. If it was me telling you how to transfer your pattern, do it on the back side, because if you put it on the nice side and if you don't cut it super accurately, then you might see your pen marks. So here we go. Try and get this on there. Just take your time. You kind of have to put your fingers down on the edges to support the paper, since I don't have like a really stiff template. If your pen stops writing, I just have a piece of scratch paper over here. I rub it on there to get the ink flowing again. Just go around the edges. Just kind of making sure I keep the paper really flat and supported. The last thing you want is to have your piece of leather and you went through all the fuss and ended up distorting your template that you spent time cutting out. You don't have to have a template. If you are someone that likes to kind of go by the seat of your pants, you can certainly just kind of start cutting and begin. But I've discovered that with the leather, it's really not overly forgiving. You kind of like, once it's cut or a mark is made on it, there's really no going back. So my personal advice, spend some time making your template. Okay, tracing is completed. So you can see here, there it is, all traced on there. If you're wondering what I use to cut stuff out. We have a standard rotary cutter. I also use scissors. I got these from just like a local hardware store. They're kind of cool. I got them mostly because I like the way they look. A nice pair of scissors will also work totally fine. So I have my trusty ruler. So let's cut it out. I like using the ruler because the leather, especially this soft leather, has a tendency to kind of move around when you're cutting it. And just by having this ruler pressed down, it kind of keeps everything in place. I am pushing pretty hard with my hand holding the ruler and my cutting hand. If you have like problems with wrist strength, it might not be something that's really optimal for you. Maybe like a really nice pair of scissors, or even like an X-Acto knife, utility knife, something like that, where you do like multiple light passes to do the cut, might be the way for you. So there we go. Save your scraps. You never know if you got a little small project that might utilize that piece. So we're moving on to the other side here. Top cut. Okay, so we did all the easy parts with the rotary cutter. Now I have the curved parts left, so I made a square basically. Take my scissors and I'm going to cut along the edge. I'm trying to kind of keep the leather flat and straight and supported. If you're like a table cutter like this, that would work fine, but I'm not. I've always been like a hold it in the air kind of cutter. So we'll do that. Get yourself positioned. This would be a little easier and less kind of ungainly if you had like a stiffer piece of leather, but it would also be much more difficult to cut with scissors. They do make leather specific scissors. They're just kind of heavy duty. But if you kind of stick to the lighter duty leathers, it would work totally fine for you. Let's see, getting into my little treasure trove here. This guy, I like using this for like little cuts like this guy. You can use your scissors, that one there, and I'm gonna use this guy to get that. So, oh, okay, someone's asking me questions. I'm new to this. The cutting surface, any cutting board worked just fine. I work at a sign shop, and we have these giant sheets of plastic that we put on our cutting tables for processing the vinyl, and I have a scrap of that, but just a standard green cutting mat would work perfect. They do sell, of course, specific leatherworking stuff, and you know, if you got infinite funds and want to go the route of getting all like leather specific things, go for it, because they're really nice to use. So I'm just using, it's basically just a big piece of plastic that, you know, keeps me from like gouging up my surface of my table. So hopefully that helps. Here we go. I'm going to cut these. So you just kind of start in the corner there and rock through. There we go. That one's chopped. Some people would wait to cut these until they fold it over and sew it all and glue it together. I might do that. So what I mean by that is, like, once we glue it up, you got these square edges and stuff, you would apply your glue and then you would just cut just once, and that way the corners match perfectly. So I think I might give that a go. There we go. Okay, so this is the side that we're going to put the rubber cement. They make like specific leather glues, but they're a little on the pricey side and unforgiving. So if you apply like the glue and just like you don't line it up perfectly, you you really can't take it off ever again. So this guy here, I'm using this just to kind of hold the edges in place when I'm stitching it. And I like this because anyone can find this anywhere. So I'm running a little bit low on the stuff. The other thing that you might want to kind of be aware of, I don't know if you can tell, but that edge is really fuzzy, furry looking. And, you know, if you don't want that as part of like the look, yeah, just like a regular file, you can use that to sort of like sand the edge. So here we go, sanding the edge. So this is just kind of taking those loose fibers and trying to sort of get them under control. I don't particularly super care a lot if it doesn't have any, because I sort of want that soft fuzzy inside. I'm sort of going for that look. So there we go. It's a little better, you can see. I do have stuff specifically for kind of smoothing edges out. So it's right here if you guys can read it. It's like backwards on my screen. This is specific leather stuff, and basically you would like apply it to the edges, let it sort of sit for a second, and then you can smooth it out, and it sort of takes like that fuzziness down, and you can kind of, it's called wetting, leather wetting. The other option for, I might do this one, edge coat. It's basically just like an edge paint for leather. I just use like one of my needle tools to apply it, so we'll see how we do. Okay, so let's glue it up. You can see it's like, you know, it really isn't a super difficult process. Kind of one of the things that can kind of catch people off guard is, or like maybe make people never try it, is they're intimidated by it. And they look at it like, oh, it's gonna be super expensive. Well, like I said before, like just going to your hobby store and buying like a bag of scrap leather makes it like pretty low consequences for like making an error in your projects, because you know, you can buy like a 3-4 pound bag of leather scraps for like under $9. So okay, keep on putting it on. You really don't want to go too crazy here. I'll show you. I'm trying to sort of make a nice even line around the outside, kind of at the edge of my glue here. Running out. Should probably get some more of my expensive leather glue. Okay, there we go, just like that. This is what it looks like. You can see the glue there. Gotta let this set up for just a couple minutes because it is contact cement. It doesn't really work super great if you stick it together when it's wet. So take a second, reflect on your, I don't know, things you want to do today. Like, I'm thinking about coffee. I want some more coffee. You know, maybe take some time to clean up some of these edges. On some of my more elaborate projects, there's a lot more kind of preparation steps needed. Some of the leather will be glued shiny side, so like this side here, you can't glue that to anything because it has a coating. So this is like a finished leather. You need to scuff that up. So you can use something like this, or you know, this, and you would basically just, you know, like a lot of times I'll take my ruler. So let's say we need to have that edge. I'll take this guy. You can use like a razor or a X-Acto knife. Take this guy and you would drag it using the ruler to kind of keep things straight. Drag it along this edge to rough, basically just kind of rough the surface up. Sort of trying to cut the finish off the leather. So there's that. You can see here it's like scuffed up a little bit on this side. I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, just scuffed up. It's just something for the glue to bite onto. It's extra difficult with this leather. You can see it's super stretchy. Interesting side note is that leather is only stretchy in one direction. So look at this piece. See how much it pulls this way? And then basically not at all this way. You gotta kind of think about that sort of thing if you're making a project that needs to be dimensionally stable for everything to fit properly together. So let's say like on this guy here, this is my mallet I made. At my parents' place I have a little mini wood lathe, and so I made this thing out of like a chunk of wood, and this handle is wrapped in leather. This is only going to work if you know the direction that the leather is going to be flexible. So the leather flexes around this way. You wouldn't want it going that way. It would never kind of become this shape. So we're going to use this later. So let's see how we're doing. It's sticky. Well, yeah, it's nice and sticky. Okay. Now take your time and line your corners up. So there we go. So that's what it looks like this. It's important. You need to hammer your glued edges. Some people use a roller. I just take the edge of my hammer like this. You don't have to hit it very hard. Just kind of tap along the edge, and that really mashes all the fibers down together. So let's see if you can see the edge. So now it's glued, and you could, like people that are sewers, you wouldn't normally do this. You'd normally just use the little pins to hold the seam while you sew it. But because this is leather, you can't have those holes, like they're gonna stay, because you know it's basically animal skin. A little fuzzy on there, I don't want. Okay, so now this edge is nice. I gotta add my curve. You can use kind of whatever you want to do the curves. I have this little letter stamp that I use for like whatever, you know. I like the radius size on it. So take this little guy like this, so you guys can see it. Take that, push it down. There's my basic shape. Take my little file, sort of even that up. You wouldn't think that leather can be filed, but it totally can. So it's kind of when I discovered that, I always thought that was interesting. This leather is very soft, so it's difficult to get super clean cuts. It just doesn't really work that way. So don't be frustrated if you're having a hard time making nice cuts. Just keep your patience and keep on trying. It might take you a few times and a few projects to really get comfortable with the material. And each piece of leather is different, so that's also another level of challenge. So I'm just kind of going along here and scrubbing it up. This is also kind of an important step if you plan to do one of the edge treating stuff, so like something like this or something like this. So I'm not sure which one I'm going to do yet, to be honest. So I'm kind of pinching these together and just cleaning up these edges. Oh, if you guys are kind of wondering, like, can't see my table, here's little tiny chunks of that plastic. You can see it's sort of see-through-ish. Light can come through it. About that thick. It's flexible. So I use these when I'm making the leather wallets. So like something like this. You see that? How they got a bit of a 3D shape going on there. I get these wet and warm water, and then I shove these in there to kind of pre-shape the leather. You gotta let it dry overnight though, so. Okay. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. might actually, I'm thinking, let's try this guy. So, give it a shake. It doesn't really, like, this leather, like I did some tests on it, kind of want to always take little pieces of your actual material and do a little test before you go, like, all out on your project. This sort of takes, you know, like I'm just rubbing it on the edge. This sort of works to smooth it. I'm just kind of looking to get some of the fuzziness off of this. It's not gonna, like, I suppose if you wanted to spend like an hour smoothing, like you would just apply this over and over and over and use like a slicking tool to smooth the edges out. Like a slicking tool can be anything from your finger, a piece of canvas. They make specific slicking tools like this guy. You know, you take that and you rub it along the edge until it gets shiny. And all this kind of depends on what you're in the mood to do. So I'm just going to take this, make sure it's saturated, rub it along here. Now if I had a little bit stiffer of a leather, I would also bevel the edges. So this guy here, you can tell what it is. Basically you run this along the edge of the leather to sort of round it off, because you know, if you have like a thicker leather and you start doing this to it, it'll actually kind of mushroom the edge to look sort of like basically a mushroom. And if you're trying to make something that looks really nice, that's not always the best look. So I'm not going to do it on this leather, it's too soft. Or maybe my tools are too dull, I don't know. I'm just kind of looking to clean up my edge. We got that. Kind of come along the top here, sort of. Think of it like kind of like hair gel for the leather. So you're just sort of applying this, and it will sort of grab those little fuzzy fibers and force them to kind of behave a little more than they were originally. You can of course really take this to like a fine finish. I'm not going to do that for the demo. Okay, so you kind of see it's darkened up a little bit. The edge is cleaned up nicely. It's not, it'll sort of turn back to the original color. It's a little bit darker than before once it dries. If you guys are wondering what the black, if you guys are wondering what this looks like on the leather, it looks like this. So it's just edge paint. You know, and you can actually use this like the gum. Probably gonna butcher the pronunciation. Tragacanth. No one knows. Okay, so Susan's asking if you can emboss on the leather. Yes, it depends on the type of leather though. So this one here, since it's a really soft leather, it's not a tooling leather. A tooling leather would be something kind of like this. This one here would be considered like a tooling leather. It's not treated with anything, so it would take a tool mark really well. So, let's see. Anyways, yeah, you can totally emboss. There's people that they specialize in just doing like elaborate carved designs on leather. The most that I do with the leather embossing, I'm just doing like heat stuff with my little stamp, this guy. I get it really hot with a fire, with like flames, and then I would press it down and it does this. You can see it is embossed and it's kind of burnt looking. It's just a nice thing I like to do. I don't think I'm going to do that on these because, you know, I don't have a dedicated like thing to like make fire at my desk. I just go to the stove and, you know, get it hot and then stick it on there. So this has had some time to dry. It's better. There we go. Okay, so the next step is we need to do the stitching. So there's multiple ways you can do the stitching. The way I'm going to do is by hand. I got this guy. This is basically just like a bunch of hole punches connected together. See the end? There's other types like this guy. These are like pricking irons, and it's basically you would just hammer it into the leather to make your stitching holes. Some people don't even do that. Some people will take something like this and they just run it along the line, and it would imprint those little teeth onto the leather, and then they would take their stitching all like this, and then they would make the holes manually. But that is a lot of work and takes forever, so that's not what we're doing. Oh, there is other option that you can see behind me, my sewing machine. It's kind of a beast and sort of acting up today, so I'm going to do it by hand. Plus, most people aren't going to have that, so this is something like you can just go to like a craft store and buy. So we need to establish with this guy. This cuts a channel in the leather because this is super soft leather, so this part's going to be kind of difficult to achieve. But this is just going to be a guide to know where to make my holes. So I'm going to begin here because this is the opening for the sunglasses. Go all around and then stop there. So here we go. So you can tell basically this side down, and there's a little scoop there. It's like a little hole that's sharp, and you drag it along and it removes material. So here we go. Trying to support the leather since it's so flexible. One of the nice things about this really soft leather is that because it is so soft already, I'm not gonna have to like soak it in water to make it become pliable to be able to put sunglasses in. I'll just be able to shove them right in there. So this is what it cut. My little tool cut that channel out of this. You can see it sort of there. There it is. So it's just a guide. So here we go. We're gonna take this. We're going to take this, if you want, take something like this, you're going to put it underneath, kind of can protect your tool from getting dull, kind of cut down on the noise a little bit. So we line this guy up, or hit it. So if you're wondering what that looks like, there they are. Okay, so the trick with this is every time you make the holes, you're going to take this guy and you're going to put it in the very last hole to make sure the spacing stays the same. So here we go. Put it in the hole, the last hole I just made, line it up. That's cut. Keep going. I like this part, but my girlfriend doesn't like this part because she thinks it's really loud. I don't know if it's loud on the recording, but probably is. So this is kind of why you wanted to kind of pre-glue it. Doing this, like every time you pull the tool out, it would totally like the alignment would go away. If you're doing this with really thick leather, it's super important to hold that tool as straight as possible. Okay, making some progress. We are getting to the turn. So here we go. Here's the turn. This is kind of pushing the limits of this being so big. So like, because I'm getting to the turn here, So I'm gonna have a little bit of like an angular turn, but that's okay. There's that. I don't know why I find this stuff like relaxing for me, especially kind of with everything going on these days. It's really nice just to like have a project where you can sort of check out, because you have to kind of focus the whole time. So I like it for that reason. Nearly done with the noisy part. If you're wondering, like, okay, Sam, I don't have the ability or tools to make a really epic solid oak mallet, you can just go to like the store. Like even Home Depot will have like a nylon mallet. You go to like your craft store and pick up like a hobby mallet, something made out of like plastic or wood. You're gonna want to not use like a metal hammer. So you see the end of this, like the metal hammer would just destroy the end of this. It's just it's not the same metal as, like, you know, if you were using like a heavyweight chisel. It's not designed to be struck with anything besides like a soft mallet. So for those wondering, that's what I would probably do. Okay, so that part's done. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a bunch of little tiny pieces that were chopped out of it just laying on my table. Take these and sort of collect them. Should probably be a little more tidy with my work area because it's so little. I like live in a small apartment, so if you're wondering, like, man, I don't have enough space to do anything creative, it's not true, because my area is teeny weeny. So here we go. There's that. Oh, one of them still stuck. This guy, see it? One of the things is stuck in there. Let's push it out. There we go. One of the reasons I like this hole punch specifically is it makes it super easy to stitch the thing up because the holes are so big. The downside to the large holes like this is you're never going to kind of have like that. You would never use like a really thin, fine like thread. I'm going to be using this. This is artificial sinew. Also, get it from any craft store. You know, it says it right there. You know, this stuff is great. It's basically like a synthetic fiber that's waxed. And what's cool about this is you can actually take this string and split it. So if you don't want to use just like this, oh, everyone loves the apron. Yeah, finally getting to wear it, everybody. So you can actually split this in theory as many times as you would like to get the thread thickness you want. So I love this stuff because it's so versatile. So alright, gonna move some stuff to the side. So now these are like saddle stitches. So the ends are kind of just round. Like you'd really have to try to stab yourself with these. They're not meant to, like, not like a sewing thread, like sewing needle, where they're really sharp and you're gonna watch yourself. These are basically like rounded off. I probably can't tell. Rounded. And they have a really big eyelet there. And that's specifically for leather. Yes, I'll answer questions after the demo. Okay, so when it comes to like this, you really don't want to run out of thread. That is a bummer. So we're just gonna give ourselves a lot. And if you're wondering why I have two needles, one goes on either end of the string. So that'll make a little more sense in just a second here. So I have a lot. There is like a proper way to like measure out, like doubling it back, tripling it back. I don't know. I can never remember that stuff, but I just kind of do a chunk and hope for the best. So I'm kind of thinking this, you see how it's sort of flat? I'm going to take it and spin it to give it a little bit of roundness. I like that look personally. If you want to keep it just sort of flat, that's up to you. I just feel like it's a little easier to get through the holes, and it has a little bit tighter sewing pattern that I prefer aesthetically. So I'm just kind of pulling it and spinning it at the same time to kind of tighten it up. It's really nice because it's wax coated. It'll just keep this shape perfectly for you. Okay. Another kind of cool thing about the thread like this being waxed is you don't really necessarily have to tie a knot to keep the needles on there. Kind of stick them through the hole and fold them over. So here we go. Shove it in there. That guy. And then I just take this. I'll just give it a little bit of a spin like that. And that's pretty strong. Like, I'm not really going to be pulling freakishly hard on this. Like, it'll cut into your fingers. Some people really like that look of like a really aggressively, like, pulling when you're doing the stitching, to pull aggressively. I'll show you that in just a second. And you can get pieces of leather that go over your pinkies, so when you're pulling those knots, it doesn't cut into your hands. Okay, so let's see. I think I'm going to start here and go this way. So this part is easy to get confused. So here we go. I take both strings and pull them through, just like this. And you're going to want to pick a direction to hold it. Like, some people hold it this way, I hold it this way, and I come through the back, like this. Pull it through. Now on this side, it's hard to show, this string here, I pull it backwards like that. And then I'm going to take this guy. It's awkward. I'm going to take this string and it's going to go in front. Like this. Goes in front. And then I'm going to pull it through. The trick with this is you want to make sure you do it the same every single time, because it actually does make a pattern, and you'll see when I'm done the stitches will have kind of like a diagonal overlapping. So there we go, first stitch. So once again, I'm holding this right there, that one, I hold it backwards. This one here, through the back side, come through, and I'm just going to continue kind of pulling that thread through here, pulling it through, coming through this side. So there we go. I'll stop jabbing and just start stitching. So you can kind of get into a rhythm. You can tell I'm really not pulling super hard. This leather is so soft that if I really pulled hard, it would distort and like scrunch up. So just hopefully I gave myself enough string. It always seems like you went way overkill, and then you get to the end, you're like, oh man, that was a close one. So there we are, cruising along. You can see it, see the pattern. So I admittedly am not a stitching master, and that's okay. Like, just trying it out and doing it and learning as you go, I think, is half the fun. You know, if we all just were immediately incredible at everything we ever tried, then it kind of takes the fun out of like learning to do stuff, I think. So don't beat yourself up if your stitches aren't as nice as mine. Mine are definitely not as nice as other people's I've seen online, that's for sure. But it's still really fun. There we go. One of the really cool things about leather is that it's such like a unique material to work with. It's really kind of satisfying when it goes your way and everything's working correctly. And there's like an incredible amount of like room within the hobby to really go super advanced. Like all the time I go like on Pinterest and stuff and look at new leather ideas, like cool leather projects. And I just like, when I got a minute, I go in there and kind of cruise around and find something that kind of excites me. And, you know, kind of think, well, how would I make that at my studio? And, you know, I'm sure as time goes by, I'll keep getting new tools and capabilities. And, you know, that'll be really fun. It's a great thing to do while you're kind of cooped up at home, because I think it's pretty like easy just to kind of begin, and it's a nice thing to kind of help some time go by, and at the end you'll have something you're proud of, hopefully. You should definitely be proud of whatever you're making, because you know, you built that thing. It's not like you just went on the internet and bought something. Like, you actually are making an effort to make something, and no matter how it turns out, I think that matters. So you can see it's my progress so far. It's not flawless, but that's okay. So I would say like this is kind of like the most time consuming part of any of these leather projects, but the hand stitching always looks really cool, I think. When I sew it on my machine, it definitely doesn't have this like handmade imperfections. It's a lot more tidy, and my machine isn't capable of using thread this heavy duty. So I use like a heavy gauge upholstery thread on my machine, and it's like, if you want something to have just, I don't want to say like invisible threads, but you know, the threads aren't necessarily like, your stitching isn't a design element, the machine's a great option. But if you want kind of that handmade artisan look to your leather stuff, stitching by hand is always the best way to go, and it's the cheapest. So I would say start with this, and there's tons and tons of stitching patterns that you can do out there. So this is just one I like, but you can pick, you know, just go on the internet and look it up. You know, tons of videos on YouTube of people doing crazy stuff. So we're moving along here in the world's slowest race. I suppose this could be like something really fun to do while you're just watching a show on TV or something, chilling on Netflix, whatever your favorite show is. Kind of like if you were knitting or whatever. So moving along, you can see here like these aren't even like wound together anymore, but they're just kind of being held in place nicely. So hopefully you guys are being amused by some leather working. I don't really know how people are going to feel about this as like a artistic outlet, but I think anything with your hands and spending some personal time would be considered artistic. There's definitely people out there that turn this stuff into, like, I would say art. Alright, so I had an error there. Let's see, I'm gonna just pull this back. So let's see, what did I do wrong? That's what I did wrong. Okay, here, I'm back in business. Like, got a little confused. Okay, so I popped my needle off there just so I could fix the stitch. So here we go, put it back like that. Okay, here we go. So, I mean, if you guys are interested in seeing any more of my leather stuff, just, you know, let me know. I'd be happy to share my projects with you guys. I picked the sunglass case because it's, I don't know, it's not that difficult of a project. It's pretty approachable for everybody. When I'm making like my wallets and stuff, those are a pretty solid hour worth of work, and they're a lot more technically, you know, demanding or interesting if you're into like strange little details like that. Okay, we're getting to the end. So there's a couple ways to finish your stitching pattern. I really like this one way I'm going to show you, but of course, like anyone that has experience sewing, back stitching, like literally just go back a couple holes would be totally fine. But I'm not going to do that. I'll show you this one way I think kind of makes it look nice. See some of my other projects? Yes. I'll show you guys some of my other things I've been working on. So, okay, so we've gotten here, right? Now you're thinking, all right, what are you going to do with these? Well, let me show you. So, take this guy. You're going to go over, and you're going to go back through the same hole. If you have a little bit thicker leather, you might need to use your, where's my pin tool? Pin tool is lost. Here it is. This guy. You might need to open up the leather to get it to go through, but right now I am just kind of looping around and coming through and then going through the center like this. Let's try and, okay, so it's a loop around and out the middle. So then you're going to take the other guy like this and do the same thing, but on the other side. Come through kind of like this. So it's going through and out the middle. So take that, pull it through. Take some time to make sure that these land in a tidy sort of way. So you see how I got them like next to each other? Just kind of, and then I'm going to give a little bit of a tug. Boop, just like that. Okay, so now we got these over here. And we have to tie our knot. At this time you can choose to sort of take those out. Set those aside. Okay, so the knot I like is just a regular like that, and I'm going to spin it around 3 times. And then I'm just take this, kind of guide it in, side there. Okay. Almost cut my fingers on the thread. Okay, so there it is. It's now inside. It's in there. So kind of, it's not totally invisible. It's still going to be there. And take my scissors. Give that a snip. If you have like a lighter or something, kind of a cool thing about this wax thread or any kind of upholstery thread is you can take those little nubs and you can kind of get them really hot, light them on fire, and then you just push them down, and they'll sort of, I don't know, sort of like shrink in and lock the stitch in. So here we go. There's that. Looking at it, this turned out pretty good. Got my nice fuzzy edge, which I think is cool. If you didn't like the edge like this, you could, you know, do like a whip stitch, which is basically you would put the holes along the edge, and then you would loop the thread around, kind of like moccasins, all the way around. And that would sort of finish the edge out, but I think for now that's totally fine. The other thing I would typically do is I have my little, this is just like a wax stamp, and I get this hot with a fire. You would take this and you would squash it down, and it would sort of burn it in. And okay, So, some of the other stuff I built, I already showed you guys this one here. This is like an example of like a little bit finer thread. This one, I think I did this one by hand, but with this. So, this is a pretty thick thread. Like, it doesn't actually fit in my sewing machine, which is a bummer. Like, I bought it on eBay and it didn't work, but you can still do some nice hand stitching with that. Got this guy. This one was done on my sewing machine. You're gonna see like the thread, like the stitching is just kind of like whatever. It's just okay. This one's cool though. Been working on these. And then here's one with like kind of the same stitching that we just did. So this is like a really soft one. You can see it's just super flexible. So if you don't like to have like a stiff leather piece, this is nice. It's super flexible. This guy is a different design. So this one's kind of cool. This is also, you can hear it. It's really stiff. This is pretty neato. So, oh, business card holder. Yeah, so this one here is like a super minimal wallet. So that's what these are for. These are to kind of like simulate like a chunk of like credit cards or something, and they fit into here like this. And then this one, heading out? Yep. Right, darling? Okay, so then the second pocket here can also take a stack like that, you know? I never put that many in there. You get stuck. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on with these right here. Yeah, so you got, you know, that little front pocket you can use as like a little card, or like take your cash and put it in there. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I know a little bit of a odd topic, but I think it's interesting. So I guess that's kind of it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my little crafting time here, and hopefully we can finish with this whole virus scare thing and get back to doing some work in the studio. And I hope to see you guys there.